Sometimes when I'm alone in the garden, I find myself involuntarily closing my eyes to better feel the sun on my face. In the springtime, the sun is so considerate and kind, gently warming everything it touches. In these peaceful, warm days, I contemplate what it means to be committed to slow living, and how a simple life can be so rich with purpose and meaning. How can the peaceful rhythm of my home support my nervous system? How can it help my family feel calm and grounded, despite all of the hustles and bustles of modern life? When life becomes overwhelming, I turn to a few slow, simple living practices to help me find my footing again. I bake bread, I knit, I read a favorite book that I have read before, perhaps even many times. Sometimes I pick an area of my home to deep clean, and I focus only on making it truly shine again. As a highly sensitive person, I find that when life moves too quickly, with too many errands and drop-offs and tasks and to-dos, I easily become overwhelmed and out of sorts. My dysregulated nervous system can have a ripple effect. The children easily pick up on my mood, and they will also become dysregulated. Clutter will pile up around the house. Nothing seems to get done, and I feel like I am falling further and further behind. But then I remember that I have built a life around the idea of a peaceful rhythm that will support me in times of overwhelm. That a slower, simpler life is one that makes me feel truly calm, truly grounded, truly nurtured. That when I am fully resourced, I can nurture my children and my home. That I can radiate my calm and it will touch everyone around me. My slow and simple life is sometimes misunderstood. I homeschool my children. They aren't involved in dozens of sports teams or activities. While we have regular days every week to meet up with friends for socialization and time in nature, I don't fill our hours with very many predetermined places to be. And so this lifestyle can seem lacking to some folks. But for us, it is the heart of our calm and peaceful lives. It gives us the spaciousness to read and learn about anything that we like. It allows for long hours spent in the kitchen together, or out in the garden, or curled up on the couch. It means we can be intentional about what things we bring into our home and how we want to behave with each other. My own self-nurturing practices are woven in throughout the rhythm of my day. I allow myself time to write and read in the earliest morning hours, before anyone else is even stirring. I have a break for tea in the mid-morning and try to focus fully on the experience so that I can take some deep breaths and recenter myself. In the early afternoons, after lessons, we have a bit of quiet time, where the children can read or play simple games, and I can savor a few minutes to myself to meditate or escape into a book. In the later afternoons, while the children enjoy some fresh air in the backyard, I turn to the kitchen. Maybe I'll knead some bread or make a batch of simple scones, or get our supper started. I will allow my mind to gently sort out the business of the day and reprioritize the chores that still need doing, while being realistic about everyone's current needs and moods. It's a balancing act sometimes for sure, but it usually seems to work out in the end. At least, that's the goal. A peaceful home will look different for everybody. There's no real rules to slow, simple living. Those of us who have embraced this lifestyle all seem to agree, however, that modern life can be incredibly overstimulating, expensive, and leave us feeling somehow stuffed too full while also feeling rather empty. Modern life can be convenient, and I do not discount the wonders of technology and science that make our lives safer and healthier, more efficient, and even more equitable. But when our lives are dominated by the hustle of productivity culture and by an endless amount of activities to ensure that our children are supposedly well-rounded, then I am forced to admit that I prefer a life that is more closely rooted in ancestral practices of tending the home, a life filled with daily celebrations and rituals, with small pleasures and a slower pace. So when I feel overwhelmed or out of sorts, all I have to do is close my eyes and remember where I am supposed to be. A rhythm built for slow, simple living is one that is easy to return to, one that incorporates enough rest and water and movement and mindfulness, one where there is always some kind of useful or grounding task to be completed that can be practiced with intention. By modeling this for my children, I hope I am teaching them the tools they will need to be kind, calm, grounded people who will feel capable and confident as they move through the world. Children who will notice the small joys of nature and the stillness within themselves. So they turn their faces to the sun and truly feel its gentle warmth on a slow spring morning. If you could ask your ancestors one question, what would it be? Would you ask them what they did with their days, how they loved, or perhaps if they have some advice for you? Maybe you'd ask if they remember what the sky looked like on their most favorite morning of their lives. My sky was the calmest shade of periwinkle this morning, So often in the California summer months, the sky is tinged with gold when we awake, announcing the heat of the day to come. But today, some sort of magical interplay between the fog and the rising sun made for an almost purple ceiling above me as I tended the garden. When I'm out here, hands in the dirt, I think about what it means to live a sustainable lifestyle, what our ancestors would have to say about this modern world we live in. What ancestral wisdom do I have deep within my bones that can help me through these troubling times? I know that, though our ancestors may not have used this language, they were indeed the embodiment of a sustainable lifestyle. Ancestral wisdom was elusive for me for years. The noise of modern life all but drowned it out. It wasn't until I deliberately slowed down the pace of my days that I could hear their voices within. I tune in particularly to my grandmothers, the ancient women in my ancestral lines who worked and toiled and loved so very deeply. The ones who made celebrations magical, even without much in the way of monetary wealth. The ones who used every available resource to feed and nurture their families. The ones who left legacies of love and care and a deep respect for the earth and for her many gifts. When we lived in community, we lived in a way that was more sustainable for everyone, for the people, the animals, and the land underneath us. We were deeply connected to the seasons, to the passage of time, and the evolution of our environments. We could not harm the land or treat it with wanton disregard, for then it would not provide for us in the coming seasons. We learned what to take, what to harvest. We learned to leave enough for others, for the creatures around us, for the seeds to renew life in the next growing season. A sustainable lifestyle is more than just choosing reusable bags at the market or storing leftovers in beeswax wrap instead of plastic, though those are objectively very good things. A sustainable lifestyle, for me, means thinking back to the choices that my ancient grandmothers may have made out of necessity, but that I can make out of a desire to live sustainably. For instance, when I bring home something absolutely delightful from the market, whether that's a flat of tomatoes, a whole pasture-raised chicken, or an armful of sweet corn, I want to make sure I'm using every part I possibly can. I want to honor the earth for her gift of abundance by not wasting anything. I want to make sure my money stretches as far as it possibly can by getting as many meals as possible out of everything I bring into the kitchen. And I want to cook for my family in a way that truly nourishes them and makes them feel connected and cared for, loved. And I do so love cooking this way. It makes me feel full in the best possible sense. I feel like I am not only nourishing my family, but nourishing my own creativity, my ties to my ancestors, and my sense of place in this world. But I also need to acknowledge the enormous amount of labor and effort, and yes, privilege that goes into living this way. Because I strive to live within these principles of ancestral wisdom that govern a sustainable lifestyle, I sacrifice in other areas. I have less time for running the children to activities outside the home. I don't have the mental capacity to learn all the new hobbies and skills that catch my eye. I could probably be out in the world, earning more money and security for my family, if I chose a different sort of life. And I think I find that, well, a bit sad. Our modern society rewards and encourages overconsumption and buying anew instead of using every last bit. It makes packaged and processed foods more accessible. It values novelty and variation and an endless array of choice. It is far easier and cheaper to buy fast food or fast fashion than it is to invest in heirloom quality organic linen garments or humanely raised meat. Our ancestors never had the choice. Animals that were raised for food lived right alongside the humans that tended them. Clothing was made to last and repaired when torn, repurposed when outgrown. This way of living was inherently sustainable. So how can we find a way to reconcile these sustainable lifestyle methods with our modern society? As individuals, we can certainly prioritize the measures we find most fulfilling and beneficial. We can mend. We can bake from scratch. We can use all parts. There is joy in that, I think. However, we cannot rely on individual actions alone, and we also mustn't allow ourselves to feel guilty if we find ourselves leaning on convenience products due to financial or mental health necessity. After all, it's not as if we've been set up to succeed here. I personally believe we need our society at large to begin to see the value in sustainable ways of life, in ancestral ways of living and working together for the good of everyone. If society comes to see that our current way of living is unsustainable, that it is causing harm to the land, to the animals, and to all the humans living on this earth, then perhaps we can begin to make the changes that will truly secure our future. Our governing bodies can make choices that reflect our values, our desire to live in a way that nourishes and nurtures everyone and everything. At least, these are the thoughts that flow through my mind as I tend the garden, as I prepare our meals, and as I dream under a cloudless periwinkle sky. The fog and mist from the morning had begun to clear. One of my favorite days of the year had finally arrived, and I was filled with a sense of quiet calm. What could possibly represent slow living more than our annual apple-picking day? The quiet walk through the orchard, the sun peeking through the clouds, the small hands of my children grasping at apples just out of their reach, the promise of fragrant apple pie and crisp apple cider for the season to come. It always proves to be an extraordinary day in an otherwise ordinary life. When slow living is a major guiding principle to how you spend your time, it can mean sacrificing other things. Too large incomes, extensive vacations in other parts of the world, the latest technologies, or the most up-to-date home. In some ways, life would be easier or more pleasant if we had more access to these things. But the value we gain from living slowly and simply can ripple out into the community and build a foundation of love and kindness for my children that will serve them as they grow and make their way out into the world. And what a world it is. We have lived in a patriarchal society for so much of human existence. As a species, we have always known war and deprivation. With all of the pain that we see in the news, the heartache and destruction, it can be nearly impossible to find peace in our hearts. We ache for the mothers and the children who are suffering. For highly sensitive people like myself, it can feel paralyzing, too much to bear. I am seized by my inability to affect change. I mean, I can call my lawmakers, I can donate, I can protest. Sometimes, however, that feels insufficient. I dream of a matriarchy, which people mistakenly think would look like the society we have now, but with women holding the majority of the money and power. I don't believe this is true. Can a group of mothers push the button on a bomb that would take the children away from another group of mothers? Can a culture rooted in the love and care of the mother consistently raise sons who kidnap and destroy, pillage and burn? The mother is more collectively minded, caring for other children almost as easily as she cares for her own. She is aware of much more than her own needs and desires, which I believe means she would naturally listen to other voices and give them a weight that is sorely lacking in today's treatment of marginalized communities. Perhaps you call this sort of dreaming naive. We don't really know how women and mothers would act within a matriarchal structure. We've never had the opportunity to find out, save for a few small, isolated societies scattered through history. But I believe we can find out. There is something more we can do to effect change to our status quo, beyond calling our elected officials and dreaming of this mythical-seeming matriarchy. I don't have all the answers, but I do believe that by slowing down, teaching my children the value of a slow and thoughtful life, we can begin to apply the brakes to to runaway consumer capitalism that drives so much destruction and greed. My children are learning to work through boredom, an invaluable skill in a culture dominated by smartphones. They are learning that kindness is the guiding force of how we interact with each other. Instead of common posturing and bullying so prevalent on school campuses today. Long hours at home give them space and time to explore what lights them up inside, from engineering to protecting endangered animals. Make no mistake, it is a privilege in our society to be able to opt out of public school in favor of homeschool. It is a privilege to not have to work 3 jobs just to make ends meet. It is a privilege to have a body and a skin color that affords me more safety than others. I am acutely aware of this privilege. Part of why I choose to live this way is so that my children can be a part of the solution that will afford everyone the ability to live in safety and comfort. If my son is raised in a way where he understands the irrefutable right of consent, of his duty to use his privilege to protect and lift up the voices without it, then I will have made a lasting contribution to more peace in the world. If my daughter is raised to see herself as whole and autonomous and worthy of a voice, I will have made a lasting contribution to the possibility of a matriarchy. If my children value kindness and safety above personal gain and the accumulation of power, then I am indeed using my seemingly ordinary life to change the world. Slow living is our chosen path, as it affords us the peace in our home that we believe will translate to peace in the world. I am brought back to my apples, my flowers, my kitchen. It is through these everyday moments in life that I dream of the future. Though it may seem small, imagining a more peaceful society is the first step to attaining one. Raising my children this way puts those imaginings into action. I have a tendency to linger in the past. I can lose hours walking through memories and recollecting sweet moments with my children when they were younger, or my own childhood experiences of joy and wonder. I also spend endless minutes thinking about what life must have been like for those who came before me, for the generations of family members who lived in this house before we moved in. There were decades of deferred maintenance by the time we arrived, toddler and newborn in tow. There were layers and layers of wallpaper and linoleum to scrape up, rusty plumbing to replace. The old kitchen began falling away piece by piece until the only course left was to start afresh. The painstaking work of reconstructing a kitchen that both honors the past and serves a modern-day family with ease and efficiency is not for the faint-hearted. It's been an adjustment, living in a construction zone for months. I have felt blocked from my usual grounding tools, cooking, baking bread, creating glimpses of my life to share with others. As part of my morning ritual, I allow myself to think of my ancestors, to call in their collective memories and glide among them, searching for gems of light and wisdom to take throughout my day. Their presence is a balm. I remember, in a way that should be impossible, the deep connections of family and community life before we left our villages. For better or worse, our ancestors were bound together with their neighbors and extended family, helping to raise each other's children, sharing meals in times of scarcity, lending a hand when it came time to lift a cottage roof over a pair of newlyweds. They lived and worked together. This life was not ideal. Make no mistake, there was insularity, shunning, injustice, infighting, and a level of hardship we can only begin to imagine. But they had the support of each other, which is something most of us lack in our world today. Reality calls me. It is inevitable as I look around these unfinished walls, these half-built cabinets. My life now is begging to be noticed and tended. But the present reality is a hard place to sit in. I immediately whisk myself to the future, and the future of this kitchen is well known to me. I am going to make it light again, filled with warm woods and natural stone. I've already lime-washed the walls, and now I scheme as to when I can lay the hand-cut tiles onto the backsplash. I have dreamt of its final incarnation for so many long years. It can feel unbearable to sit in the present any longer. My daydreams slide from the kitchen and back into the collective. Our hopes for a new, more sustainable, and more just world. I look to the past to envision a world where we all live and grow and work together again. How can we go back to living with intention, living lightly on the land and in a reciprocal relationship with it? How will we structure our communities so that they are safer and still full of wonder, generosity, and freedom? Freedom to care for each other without having to worry that a missed day at work will send us off of a financial cliff. Freedom to teach our children to care for the earth and creatures around us, instead of pressuring them to get better test scores or launch a prestigious career in a life full of consumption. I dream of a life rooted in the woods, the ocean, the garden, with my children by my side and friends and neighbors wandering through to help and harvest as they will. A world where learning is celebrated, where books and stories fill our days and crowd out the pings that constantly fracture our attention. My dreams and musings spin out, and my coffee has chilled in my cup. I am again, gently but firmly, brought back into the present. The rhythm of daily life cannot be paused just because my kitchen isn't finished yet. The children still need to be fed. The dishes still call to be washed. The dogs still need tending. My soul still seeks grounding. I pause. I breathe. I give thanks. I notice. I breathe again and again. And there goes my mind back to the past or the future where it feels safer. Is it my inability to stay present that prevents me from fully experiencing and embodying this life? I don't pretend to have the answers. I only know that when I simplify, when I try to be mindful of my daily tasks and rhythms, when I stop feeling frozen in what was and cease wandering through anxieties over the future, I am finally able to fully breathe. It is from this place that I can better distill the lessons of the past and turn a more hopeful eye to what lies ahead. I am back in the kitchen, this place that holds so many hopes and dreams and memories, and continue my work.